Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I'm Frank Swoboda. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them. This week, the most interesting person you've never heard of is...
I'm Matt Meyer, and I'm the most interesting person you've never heard of because I'm a talent buyer and promoter, and my first show was a beautiful failure.
That's great. So where are you from? How did you come to Spokane? That's the other thing that's interesting.
Born and raised, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Born in Spokane, raised in the Valley. Furthest I've ever lived away from Spokane is down in Pullman when I went to college. So every time I've tried to get out of Spokane, something's always pulled me back in.
Sounds familiar.
Yep, and it's and good reasons too. Like I love Spokane. I've always loved Spokane. Yeah. I'm a golfer and a skier, and so you can't.
We
get
have
much
to play
better.
golf. Why have we not played golf yet? We got to get this thing out.
Yep.
There's no accidental meetings, as they say.
Exactly. Yeah, and so it's like the hobbies are always here for me, and then from the work side, it's like every time I felt like I kind of hit a pinnacle and wanted to move my career on somewhere else or to a new place. It was, I was always just promoted, like I guess at the right time.
Right.
It was
just enough to stay.
Yeah, just enough to stay. Yeah, and it's like okay, I'll stick around. And then, like even during the recession. My career started right out of college with the Spokane Shock as the director of game operations.
Oh, right on. Okay.
And then
that's cool.
Yeah, and then when the recession hit, I was let go and was working under the table for cash and still making the same amount of money.
Scrapping.
Yeah. And it was like at that point I had my resume up and down the West Coast and had a couple things in couple bites in San Francisco, like right outside of San Francisco. And because that's another city I've always loved.
Oh, me too. I could live there, right?
Yeah. Well, not anymore, but yeah.
No, I could have. I wanted to. One time I thought I could.
Yeah. And so it's like and I had this job that I was actually offered to me during that point, and at the last minute I just turned it down. It didn't seem right and didn't fit, and then that's when I was hired on down at the Spokane Public Facilities District.
What year would this have been?
2009, I think.
Oh, wow.
9, something like that. And I've been with them ever since. And it's like every time you got to that point, promoted to this, and then moved over to this, and then promoted to this. And so, and I started booking the First Interstate Center. At the time, it was the INB Performing Arts Center. At that point, Kevin Tuig, our old CEO.
Yeah, I know Kevin. Yeah, he's an awesome guy.
He's a great guy.
Totally. He's done a ton for this town.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Ton.
And built up so much in the downtown area, the building, our facilities, everything, right?
Yeah.
And he helped me out with my music festival too, kind of giving me some pointers and directions and setting me up with some people. But once he left, or we knew he was leaving, my CEO now, she brought me in because she was our general manager at the convention center. It was after a board meeting, and she heads to Hawaii every year for a little bit of time, and she pulls me in. She's like, "Matt, I need to talk to you before I leave." I'm like, "Oh, okay, this can't be
You
good."
never want to hear that. No one ever wants to hear that.
Yeah. And so she pulls me into this conference room that we have, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, "Yeah, what's going on?" And she's like, "I want you to run and book the theater for me." I go, what? Like completely out of the blue, had no idea this was coming this direction.
Right.
And again, I had my resume out. I was applying for different jobs and everything.
You think they knew?
She didn't, because the funny thing is during the conversation.
Instinctively she knew.
No, during the conversation she goes, "Yeah, I see a lot of potential with you, and you're somebody I want to make sure that we're taking care of you,
right,
and that you're not applying anywhere." And I just kind of looked at her, and she goes, "You're not applying anywhere, right?" And I go, actually, she goes, "Do you want this job?" And I said,
"Now,
yes, I do." And she goes, "Okay, you have it. We'll figure out the rest once I get back."
Yeah, baby.
I'm like,
"That's good."
Okay, cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So
how old were you then?
You're asking questions I have no idea how to.
I never said this was gonna be easy, Meyer. Come on.
I don't ever like. My mindset is
You're
age.
not on this side of the mic very much. Me either.
My mindset is age is just a number, and it's more a mentality
so
thing,
true.
right? Yeah.
Trust
and
me.
so it's like And what's funny is once we get to the Paul McCartney stuff.
Yeah.
When I was talking with the spokesman when they did the whole article about
it was
how we
great.
booked it, I told him I was 38. I'm actually 37.
You didn't even remember.
No. I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm 38 now. I'm like, no, my birthday hasn't hit yet.
You don't remember anymore. It's so true. Yeah.
So
if it doesn't end in a 0 or a 5, you will not remember it. Trust me, from here on out.
So yeah, I have no idea how old I was. But it was, I took this position, and that was right after my music festival, Tenable had just happened and occurred. And so it was like she sang everything what was in my mind and creating it, and what I was able to do with a team of, I call this Misfit Toys, because it was like it was a bunch of people that had worked with us before and maybe moved on to something else, or that I've known that were just kind of like, there's a lot of people kind of in limbo of what they were wanting to do, and we just all had this like will to go do it, right?
You found a common ground, common thing to fight for,
So we went and did this thing, and it came across really well and was very well done. I had a lot of people telling me that like this was the best and most organized thing that they've been a part of, especially on a festival side of things. But ticket sales just weren't there. So moving back, it was like I took over the theater, booking that, and going down, having new agents that I needed to talk to, because I came from the festival side and had these people set up over here, but those guys work together on everything because their goal is to make money too. So it's like they're passing me off to the people that I need to talk to.
They're connecting you along the way.
Follow the path. All the dots. Yeah. And so traveling and everything, I created this budget, and like my CEO's been great with everything that I've been able to do, because she's really given me the keys to go drive these ideas, and just sat back hoping that I wasn't going to crash. And it's in so many different ways too, right? Not just from the
and she is
Stephanie Curran. Yeah, sorry.
I know who it is.
Yeah. So Steph has been great.
She's amazing.
Yeah. And like, just kind of, she hears what my mindset. I'm able to like explain everything to her, and she gives me the opportunity. And I mean, we know if it's something that's really not feasible, we look into it. And if it's not feasible, it's like, okay, let's scrap this for now. Maybe we can come back to it, or whatever it may be. But yeah, from the booking side, it's like, I told her this is my plan for travel, and this is like for me to really take this and grasp this, because the theater's never had this before, and if we really want to do this correctly, I need to be able to go do this.
You got to hit the road.
Yeah. And
go where shows are getting booked.
Yeah. In those like Nashville, LA, New York, all those.
Yep.
And so it's like, she saw it, and like from the people I was talking to throughout the industry, that mutual friends with her, and it was a lot of the people that were having success this is how you do it, and it's that face-to-face contact. It's those relationships, and this entire industry is based.
So everybody you talked to about how they did it, that's what they told you.
Yeah, and it's this whole relationship. The whole industry is based off all these relationships, and so it's like, how else do you get that? It's not over the internet. It's not over the phone. It's not email or anything like that.
No,
it's
you got to meet them.
It's face to face.
Yeah, it's doing this, brother.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, seriously.
And so
it is.
Which is really good too, by the way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're not yet sponsored by Amador, but we will be.
and you should be. This is really good.
It's really good.
And so I took off doing all that, and our first full year that we had the theater open, there's like, and some of the agents, they're not going to trust you right off the get-go, right?
No.
Because you're coming in. You're telling them, we're going to start buying these shows, and
because they've heard it a million times and been totally hosed.
Yeah, exactly.
By somebody that didn't come through with it.
Yeah. Yep. And so it's like,
did you feel that? Could you feel that was like, oh, they're watching me?
Yeah, you could.
Knew, right?
You could feel it on certain agents, and it's like, okay, I'll buy this. I'll buy this show that I know is going to fail, but you know what? I'm going to buy it to prove to you that we're actually in this, and I'm not just going to buy that one. I'm going to buy maybe this one that I actually think might work.
Right.
Because at least I have a fighting chance.
Well, and in the one that fails, I get to see how you operate.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a test run.
And it is. And so, it's
not unlike what Paul McCartney's doing. Yeah. Honestly, swear to God, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's smart.
Yeah. And so it was like jumping into this, and it was, okay, I knew this one was going to fail, or this one had a fighting chance. This one should work. And sometimes it was the opposite, like the ones that I didn't think were going to work or might be a lot harder. And ended up working. And so like, yeah, that first year we had a lot of failures, but by doing that, it also caught the eyes of the agents too, within the, not just the ones I'm working on, but within the organizations. And then same with the promoters. It's like, oh, the First Interstate Center's on a lot of these things. Spokane's starting to pop up on these random
It's
stuff.
not getting on our route.
Yeah, it's getting on radar. That's what it is. And I've ended up finding out that the theater wasn't even on agents, like the territorial agents. Some of them didn't even know about it.
Wow.
So it's like I was starting from scratch.
Wow.
And like
that's kind of pisses me off.
Zero.
Kind of pisses me off, and kind of I get it.
Yeah.
But
and so
because I love shows that come here, you know.
Yeah. And so I went into this like kind of, I wasn't expecting that, but I knew it was going to be scratching and clawing on some of this stuff. So kind of surprised by that. And it was having to work through it and get all that going. And by the time our first full year, because we opened the theater back up in 2018 in November, I think it was. Yeah. Once we got into 2019, that first full year, we did, because I did a SWOT analysis too from about 5 years prior.
That's cool.
I had in the first 2 quarters already equaled what we typically would do on sellouts on shows.
Wow.
Had more sellouts in those first 2 quarters than what we would average.
Halfway through the year, you're already beating last year.
Yep. And then our projections on, I didn't really know how to project out what to expect on that year, just because some of these shows, but our trajectory was like more than where I was expecting, either one of us were expecting it to be.
Wow. And
by the end of the year, I had over double the amount of sellouts in the building, had more than double the amount of concerts and comedians, because Best of Broadway is always coming through there. They've got their season. I don't count that in these counts. The family shows I count in there as well, like the kid shows and stuff like that, because we were barely doing any of those, and those are going out all the time. And the comedians, we might get one. We used to get one every year and a half-ish. Mm-hmm. And out of that SWOT analysis, it was Brian Regan popping up, I think, 2 times, and then I think Tosh was in there. No, there's one other comedian that was in there. So it's like going into this, it was, here's my goals: 1 kid show a quarter, and at least 1 comedian a quarter. I hit the kid show thing. I didn't hit the comedian, but then the concerts, because I was really plugging away at the concerts, we just knocked it out of the park.
Wow.
And
so double what you'd done the year before.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I told my CEO, I was telling Steph, as my birthday and her right around the same time, so we go have lunch every year, and I was telling her as we were walking to lunch, she goes, "What's your goal with this?" And I said, my goal is to have a net revenue every year of over $1 million in this building. That doesn't account for net taking like all the taxes out, but we still have our overhead costs and stuff like that. Sure. Right? And she just looked at me. She goes, "You really?" And she chuckles. She goes, "You really think we're going to be able to do that?" Well, 3/4 of the way through the year, she looked at me. She goes, "You're actually serious about this.
You're doing this. This is actually happening."
And we had Lion King that year too.
Oh, wow.
3 weeks of Lion King. I think it was 3 weeks. And everyone was like, "Well, you've got Lion King this year. You've got Lion King." Well, in the past, we always had 4 weeks of it. And I was like, and so I told them, I was like, "No, this is, we should always have something like this coming through on the Broadway side. And we will always have something coming through. But like, this is a week less than what we typically would have. And that same year that we had that, an extra week of it, I'm actually beating it."
Wow.
So that first year, it ended up being our highest grossing revenue year in the theater. And so at that point, she kind of gave me the reins and a little bit more, and then ended up taking over booking the arena officially in January of 2020.
Wow.
Interim was, I think, December. And so once I took that over, it was kind of that same process, right?
Right. You got a blueprint.
Yep. Yeah. And
what do you think accounted for that happening? Was it just the hustle and the connections and the relationships that you had built?
Yeah. It was
now finally we're coming through to fruition, right?
Yeah. And one of the agents because there's 2 of the agents that I met with that handle the territories at 2 different agencies, then same age as me. So that connection was really easy.
Yeah.
And then one of them, my daughter's 3 years old. His son is 2.5. So we're going through the same stuff, right? It's not just talking about industry stuff. Yeah. And it's not just talking about the industry stuff; it's talking about life at that
of
point.
course.
And then the other one, him and his wife were trying to get pregnant, and then he had a family tragedy. He ended up taking a couple of his family member had passed away, and so he took over and adopted their 2 kids.
Oh wow!
And at that same time, or 2 kids, 3 kids, and then at that same time, his wife all of a sudden became pregnant too.
Oh my god!
And they had twins.
Oh my god! What? He's got a crew now.
So he went from 0 to 5 like within 6 months, 9 months.
Wow!
But and so
careful what you wish for.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where it's like he and I are talking about all that stuff now too,
sure.
right? And like even to this day, when I fly into town, it's not us just talking. Even during the conferences, it's us going like we're at a bar in the evening. After everything, right. Chilling, hanging out,
right?
Like just having fun.
Yeah. Well, in my I've been doing this for almost 30 something years now, over 30 years, and I have clients. I mean, SDCU's been a client for 21 years, and it's a lot of it's relationship and just lived experience, and yet I always know, and that as good as a relationship, if you're not delivering, you're not going to get get another, you might get a break here or there, but it's still about performing, right? I mean, you have to kind of come through. So the question for everybody from Spokane is, what high school did you go to? U High. Okay. Right on.
Yep.
And then a Coug.
Yeah.
Wow.
For life.
So you're putting on parties in Pullman. That's what really led to all this.
I knew it. That's the one thing you'll always get out of that education.
I was at those parties 20 years before, but they're the same party. No, that's cool. I mean, because I stayed here too, and I could have left and thought about it a lot of times, and I just felt like, and my son's Nick's going through that right now. He's 25, and he doesn't want to go. And when I was a kid, you kind of left. Yeah, because this was not
Spokane. Wasn't what it was
nothing
today.
Going on, right? When you were a kid, it wasn't really what.
No, it wasn't. Every time I came back from college, it was like the downtown was different.
Yep, exactly.
And I could start seeing it progress. I'm like, okay, this is getting better. This is getting like it's kind of getting cool.
Yeah, there's a renaissance going on. Yeah. And did you? Because I remember at one point going, well, it's going to be me that stays here that helps this happen.
Never had that come through my mind.
You didn't? No, you didn't think. You never look around and go, I'm going to be part of making this better. Because you've done that.
Right out of college? No, it didn't even cross my mind.
Maybe not. Maybe nothing comes out of your mind right out of college.
College is like, sweet, I've got this cool job.
At those points, though, did you? When did it occur to you, like, man,
the moment that when I started applying for the job at the facilities district, because I was working as a tech as well up in tech world, kind of part-time, running cameras and operating equipment up there for a little while. And
at where? In
the arena.
Oh, the arena. Okay.
And then so once I applied for the position down at the theater, or down at the convention center in the theater, it kind of hit me as like, and this is a problem that we're having still to this day. It's like, I don't even know what I'm applying for right now.
Right.
And so I had to start doing
It's a weird description of a job.
Yeah, and I had to start doing all this research on it. And talking to my dad, he's like, well, you do realize the economic impact they bring to Spokane, like everything like this. Like,
millions.
Nope.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I started looking into that. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Okay,
you're doing something important now.
Yeah, this is really neat. And then once you're in it and really working as like the full-time event manager and seeing and reacting and interacting with all these people coming into town that don't even live here, and you go to the restaurant, like even at lunch while these things are happening, you go to the restaurant you want to go eat at, and it's
you can't far away. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, here's what's happening. This is how this is working, and it starts making a lot more sense. And so, really, like that's kind of when it started. And then probably about 5 years before I put on my music festival, that's what it was. It was like, I really want to do something. And that was part of the reason why we did the music festival. It's like,
make this place cool.
Yeah. Spokane's moving in a direction from, and that's where the music festival came from, is like, it's moving in the right direction. I looked at it like, is this the right time? Here's what's going on. Yes, this is. There's so much movement coming into town. The projections, even in the future, even higher. And then from my aspect, like even going back in history, it's like, I was a kid, like I didn't have that much fun. Like
there's nothing to do in this town, right?
Yeah. I want to make people stay here.
Right.
And so that's when I started looking at like all the different possibilities and capabilities of doing this, and that's where again those connections in town come in, and those the relationships. And so I started putting all this together, and I again went to Steph and was like, hey, this is my plan on doing this, and like a whole spreadsheet and stuff, because the PFD had nothing to do with it. And she's like, do it. It's got to be on your own time, but like this looks cool. And so I started putting it together, and the thing took 3.5 years to put together from start to finish. Wow. And a buddy of mine,
patience, man.
Yeah, buddy of mine. What was really cool is during this, he set me up with. It was supposed to be just like a half-hour meeting with the head of Live Nation's band development.
Wow. Can you explain who Live Nation is?
Live Nation's the largest promoter in the world, concert music promoter in the world. And so he set me up because he's friends with this guy, and set me up with him. And I did my research on him. Like, holy shit! Like, I'm meeting this guy. This is crazy. The guy. Yeah. And what turned into just like this little coffee appointment that he was going to like give me some tips and stuff. It was 2 hours later when I left. Wow. And I was like, we met down like, coffee, and then went back up into his office and started talking about a bunch of other stuff. And at that point he gets done, he goes, you do realize this was pretty much like a consulting session and what this is worth, right?
Right. Yeah. This is your master class.
Yeah.
Dude.
I go, yeah, I understand that. He goes, and the connection that we have and why I'm more than happy to do this. He goes, you're staying at Brett's house or Brett's apartment? I go, yeah. He goes, I've slept there too.
I was there once.
His couch. I'm like, yep, it's comfortable.
Right. There's you got to get out there, man.
Yeah. And so it's like,
cool. That's amazing.
It's like learning all that stuff. And then like he kind of set me up with a couple other people too. And then using Kevin Tuig's contacts and set me up there. And it's like, that's how it's all kind of came together. And then we put it on and had that festival. And I mentioned that it was like from a lot of people's perspective, it was extremely organized. It was very, for first year, very well done. We had some of our bands locally that had played back in Bumbershoot back in the day.
Oh, yeah, sure.
They were openly, they were openly stating like, this is an early Bumbershoot feel. It's got the same vibe. It's got everything going on.
The town feels that way.
The setup is great. You can see like where the vision is and like where this is eventually and could progress to.
Easy town. It's an easy city to get around.
Yeah.
Walk around.
It's extrevely walkable.
It's incredible.
Visit Spokane. That's how Visit Spokane sells Spokane.
And that's the thing about what you're doing. And, I have had the really good fortune of traveling a lot of places. I'll be in Houston in a few weeks and filmed in China, filmed in Europe. I've been a lot of places, 38 states I've worked in, and so I get to go, and most people who live here don't, right? And they don't really have an appreciation for how great this city is. Yeah. And to me, it comes down to the stuff you can do there. I mean, I've been into some pretty cool mid-sized cities in America where everything shuts down at 6 o'clock and there's nothing going on. This is a much more vibrant town, and especially when right at COVID hit, man. I think it was at the renaissance of its history, maybe ever. Yeah. And I mean, it was for us. It certainly has helped our business, but I remember seeing an Inlander article maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15, that was like, the biggest missing Spokane has is it's not cool. It's not interesting. There's not interesting stuff going on here. There's not great shows. There's not great art. There's not great theater. There's not great food. There's not great events. Gonzaga certainly has helped a ton of that, and lots of events have. But what you're doing is doing that. Like, it culturally gives, hey, there's stuff to do there. I want to go there. And
it's great what we have with Gonzaga, and even being a Wazoo grad, I can't say like I'm a
Zag, so I mean, not that I would. You never know. But.
I'm not a.
My dad was a kook.
Wish ill my dad was a kook,
anyway. So I've been a kook my whole life.
Yeah. I've got my own stuff on that, and it was just like. It's great.
You can be both.
Yeah. It's great with what Gonzaga is doing, and like we've got this college in the middle of our city. We just need to keep and attract these kids here at this point. Yeah. And like, how do you do that?
And we used to call it when I was first in business. People that I worked for would say there's the brain drain that we have here. Amazing schools, people are a great place to raise a family, and then all the talented kids leave. Yep. And that's my generation and probably yours too. Yeah. They're not leaving. Nick's not leaving. The guys who work for me are amazing. They're not leaving. And it's now the reverse. So we're getting people.
People are coming in.
Yeah, Zach, who's producing this podcast, came here from Chicago, who, and doing really good work there. because it was not affordable. And a friend was like, hey, move here or come check it out. And he came and didn't leave. So, I mean, and it's a cool place to be, right? So,
And like I was just randomly golfing. I can't even remember where, but I was by myself, and the guy I ended up playing with was the.
Next time you do that, just call me so I can go play.
We've got that figured out now.
Yeah, we do.
I end up playing with the what was it, the food writer from, I think it was the LA Times.
Oh my God.
And he was up here doing an article on Spokane. And
wow.
He was sent up here, and he flat out told me, they told me I had to go to Spokane to write this thing, and I was like, oh great.
Spokane, Jesus, why do I got to go there?
He goes, I started doing some research on it and getting these, started seeing the chefs and everybody that were around. It was like, okay, I've got the James Beard chefs, and he's like, okay, this could be fun. And he goes, I've been really pleasantly surprised. He goes, because there's a golfing article too. He goes, between the golf and the food, he goes, oh yeah, you guys have a destination, and that's what this article is about. And it's really easy for me to write this. And he's asking me where I would recommend going, and I'm telling him the places, and he, by the end of it, he's telling me like how we have some of these restaurants that could fit in anywhere in the nation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That we've got right here in downtown.
No doubt.
Yeah, and it's like the whole city has been building out over these last few years. Unfortunately, came to a screeching halt with COVID.
Yeah, it did.
But it's like it's been consistently growing in the right direction, and it's like,
and I think at the right pace.
Yeah. Now it's not, but it's still great with the growth, and it's and we have a lot of my friends have started moving back into the area too, because it's more still, they understand the affordability of it now.
Absolutely.
Too, right? So it's a great thing, and then again that's where I kind of come in with the entertainment side of things. With
it's a
bringing
big
it into
deal.
town, and it's something that I've always told myself and told my CEO. It's like, we should be doing X amount of shows at the arena. We should be doing X amount of shows down at the theater. We can do this here. You have to be smart about it. You can have over different genres overlapping each other on the calendar.
Sure.
You can't have the same stuff back to back to back.
Right.
We're gonna
be smart about how you checkerboard this.
Yeah, and we're gonna see how this works this year to see what we can truly get out of the market.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff coming up on the books that isn't announced, and I'm sitting here just salivating at what's coming, and it's really neat.
Which you're going to tell all on this podcast.
Oh, absolutely,
of course,
100% of it. and so it's like there's a week in November that's just stupid right now that we've never had in Spokane.
Wow,
and it's all come together, and part of it has to do with COVID and the industry being shut down, and all these artists need to go back out, and it's really screwed up the touring cycles. But at the same time, it's like everyone believes that it can happen too, right? And so we're really pushing the limits on what the market can sustain. And the neat thing about doing it, in my conversations with my reps and the agents and the territorials that I work with, is like, let's push the limit. Let's see what we can do. And then if we can do it, great. If not, then we know we need to back off a little bit.
That's a better problem to have.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they're 100% behind it right now. And
that's amazing.
Because there's so much out there, and like from the routing standpoint.
Oh, and people are just dying to work again and perform again, right?
Perform.
So maybe this is an opportunity.
People want to be. And then the consumers want to go to it. So it's like
people are dying to go to stuff. Yeah. So can you just give me your title? I know what the Public Facilities District is, I think, but it's, I would, if you asked 100 people in this town, maybe two know.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem.
Right? I know you're working on that. So I just kind of wanted to, tell us what this is, because I don't think most people realize how amazing this organization is and what it does for us.
Yeah, so I'm the director of entertainment
for the Spokane Public Facilities District.
Yep, for the Spokane Public Facilities District. And when I say the PFD, that's what we're talking about.
It's not a personal flotation device.
Yeah. Or PDF, which you hear a lot of times too.
Which most people can't open.
Yeah. Or the police department. So what we are is we own and operate the Spokane Convention Center, the first interstate center for the arts.
Spokane Arena, was the Opera House growing up.
Yep.
Right, okay.
Yep. And the INB Performing Arts Center. It's changed its names a couple times. The Spokane Arena, We just opened the podium, indoor track and field facility.
Amazing.
And we will be operating the stadium as we're building that with the Spokane Public Schools District.
Which is where USL Soccer will also play?
Yep, exactly.
Okay,
yep.
got it.
And so
So these are all, you oversee the entertainment for all of that?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot.
First of all, good that it's all being at least coordinated, because I would guess at a time those were siloed.
They
were all doing their own playing their own little fiefdom and their own little game.
They were. And
Makes
that's the vision that Steph had, and bringing it all back together.
Smart.
And
she is wicked smart.
She is, and
we're really lucky to have her.
Yeah, we are. Like, the city is really lucky, and I mean, she's from California, and she moved up here kind of on a whim to go to Gonzaga, and then the last thing, like, she's loved the city so much, she's stuck around, and she's wanted to.
She's one of those people, right?
Yeah,
that came and stayed.
Yeah,
the Gonzaga impact. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we operate and own all those buildings, and it's my duty to entertain everybody with it.
So maybe you can juggle after all. I was just suggesting
a little bit. I know two balls.
Oh, you juggle every day, man. I'm sure.
Yeah. And so and so with all of that going on, I mean, we have our teams and whatnot. And then, as you were mentioning, at one point it was more siloed into the areas, but Steph's vision and seeing where we're moving, we've started integrating everybody working together.
Synergy. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And like a good example of this is we had two separate marketing teams pretty much doing the same thing at both campuses. And it's like, we just merged them together and had people more specialized in things rather than doing the exact same thing. Just
duplicating.
Yeah. And so
smart.
Yeah. And that's been coming together over the months coming out of COVID. We were literally in interviews the day the world shut down to hire a director of marketing.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was our last interview we canceled because everyone's told to go home.
Wow. So what did COVID do? Because at that point you were killing it. Right?
Yeah.
This town was killing it.
Yeah.
The downtown was really vibrant.
Yeah. The theater was like just humming, right? That was going well. The arena we had, it had been doing better than it had been in the past. From my opinion, I mean, we had growth still there to go. And so, like, taking that over, and we were moving that in the right direction. When COVID hit, obviously that just huge just train wreck and just stopped everything. But at the same time, and I've seen this through my industry, is like people either use it to their advantage or they just took the time off and didn't do anything about it. Right. And again, going back to Steph, in my conversations with her, is like, here's what I'm going to do during this.
This was your opportunity to get your big plan in place.
Yeah. And so because I came into the arena and like really I didn't have time to get my feet underneath me. I had to just run because we were supposed to have the NCAAs that year too. So it's like having to learn all that stuff.
That got canceled. That was a huge loss.
Massive loss.
Massive loss.
First ever press
of a
conference.
Loss is that, by the
first ever press conference I've ever had for the PFD was me telling the city about that. That was like, it was just emotionally draining. And I knew the night, I will never forget this, but the night I went home, found out about Rudy Gobert and what he did. And then the next day testing positive for it and coming down with it. Or the next week coming down with it. I knew the moment the NBA started shutting down,
I know right where I was
done.
when that happened.
Everything's done. And I looked at my wife. I'm like, I'm going to have long days here for the next few days.
No kidding.
And,
when the impact of that, because it wasn't just the NCAA is coming here, but Gonzaga was the number one seed, and they were seeded here.
So they were going to potentially to be seeded here. We all knew they were going to.
Well, they would have been here.
Right.
They would have been here. What kind of impact is that? Just guessing. That was lost to this community. Do you have any idea, or do you just not want to even think about it?
I can't remember. Somebody looked into it, the economic impact of it. I know it's millions, right? And what's cool, and I know this, like just from the conventions and stuff, like a regular one of the citywide conventions on average will bring in anywhere between 1.2 to 1.5 million.
Right.
And that's just one convention.
Right.
The Podium this last season did, I think, $15 million worth of economic impact its first year. That's impact that we've never had.
Wow.
Right.
That's new stuff.
Yeah. That's just the track season too. That's not
it's not even a full year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
So I believe it's close. I can't remember if it's 1 to 3 million, right around there is what that impact was. And so it was that was come in, take this position over, had all this happen. And then, I mean, after I settled down from having to move all the shows around everywhere and like just blow up my calendars.
Yeah.
It was, okay, how am I going to come out of this? Like from my perspective, everyone's like, yeah, it's only going to be a couple weeks, right? It's like, no, this is...
You knew.
My wife and I have been watching it since November.
Yeah.
In December, whatever it was.
This is going to be a while.
Yeah. And so it was like, okay. And my initial thought was, we'll probably come out of this during the summer sometime, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. 4th of July.
Yeah, I was hoping to fall.
No, early on I thought, and then I was like, no, no.
Yeah, and as things kept progressing, it was like, oh, okay. And I quit trying to make projections on it and whatnot. And so I took that time, one, to learn about the buildings, learn about what we could do, take a look and see like the extra revenue streams that we've never tapped into in both of the buildings. Right,
because there's an opportunity sometimes for a reset.
Yeah.
Where you get to stop.
Yeah.
And silence and serenity is not a bad thing sometimes.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think we all experience this giant reset where everybody still sort of had to stop and reevaluate.
Yep. You
have to relook at is this viable? Yeah. I did. We were like, can we make it? You know, and fortunately we did. We did great. But you either did great or you didn't.
Yeah.
It was all or nothing sort of at that point, right?
Yeah, and so I started looking into the because I already had the partnerships and the relationships with the theater. I started looking into that same thing up at the arena. Yeah. And from what I'd been hearing in the past, and like we have these relationships with these guys and this, and so I did again that SWOT analysis of like the last 5 years. I'm like, oh, this really isn't what I thought it was. Like those relationships actually aren't there as much as I thought they were.
Really?
But I already have a couple of them started over here from the theater. Let's move this over here as well. Smart. And so during that time, I started getting on the phone and talking to these guys. Like, how can we get more content in here? What can we do? What is it that you need as the promoter?
Right.
Where we can work in synergy to make this happen.
Because one thing you do have is their attention and their time. Nobody was doing
Yep.
nothing. So you could actually get a hold of people you probably never could have because everybody's going 100 miles an hour.
And the best part about that, too, everyone's at home.
Right.
So guess what?
Right.
Their office phones don't work anymore.
Right.
So now I've got all their cell numbers.
Right. And
which never happened.
Like, hey, it was people acted different because they're at home. They're a little more themselves. I don't know. Does that seem right?
Well, even in this industry, like there was the work life and then the home life was completely separated.
Correct.
And there is no way because
there was no
just
blame.
how much we work, like in this industry, how much we work, we have to do that.
Right.
And there was none of that now at this point.
Yeah.
And so it was hard getting people, like especially the agents' cell numbers. You were lucky if you got that.
Yeah.
Now you had to get it to be able to talk to them, and they had to get it yours to be able to make money.
Yep.
Right. And start booking things again coming out of this. So there's a lot more synergy. There is a lot more angst to get out of it, and there's a lot more like just camaraderie to get out of it too.
Yeah.
Right? And so like moving it around. And so these relationships that I started working on, Outback concerts out of Nashville is one of them. So going back to the comedy and the theater, right? Mm-hmm. That was one of my sticking points of what I was trying to get into that first year. Well, Outback is one of the largest promoters in the nation in comedy. And so it's like, let's make this relationship work. And so I started talking to him about it. And
that was one of your goals.
Yep.
Right.
And that's where Tim Allen came from, Louis C.K.
Wow.
Bert Kreischer with those two shows. Tom Segura. That's where all of it's come from.
Wow.
Tom Segura's announcing at the end of the next week. So,
can you even say what you just said?
Yeah.
Better check yourself. This won't run till April, so we're fine.
Yeah. So like all of those are coming, and all of those are going to be within a year of each other right now, and we're working on a couple more too right now. And so going back to that quarterly thing, that's just from one promoter. We had Joe Coy in there. I promoted Hassan Minaj. And I've got a couple more on the books holding right now. And this is just at the theater. So like we're talking every other month for a year that we're having this comedy coming out of this now.
That's great.
Which is, it's amazing. And that relationship's already implanted and it's there. And so I took that, brought that up to the arena and started talking to see, okay, how can we make this work a little bit more? Jim Gaffigan comes from it. Granted, we've had Jim before, Gaffigan before, and from the same promoter. So it's like that was an easy one to start with.
He's amazing.
He's
amazing.
Great. Yeah. And so it's like, let's take this and let's build off of this a little bit more. And they had some internal shifting and stuff like that to where they're going to be doing more in the concert industry side of it too. So it's like, okay, let's pull that in here too and take this relationship that we've already built. Our marketing teams work in synergy.
Everybody knows each other. Yeah, you already know that
let's just keep building off of it. Yeah, so it's like we always have had this Live Nation relationship, and so it's like we already had that there. I needed to build the one up with AEG a little bit more, and those guys, me helping them out with the park, and before we actually came out of this, I was working with them where we were going to co-promote all of these socially distant outdoor concert pod setup shows out in the Lilac Bowl.
Wow.
The park where because it's more space, we can get more people in there. The financials kind of made sense at that point.
Outside distance.
Yeah. So we had all this laid out and all this work going on, and then it's like, oh, mandate's out.
Everything's okay now.
Yeah. So outdoor they just went back to what they were doing. It's like great, but like all that time we spent working on that. And coming out of COVID, I've got more AEG shows in both of our buildings than I've had in the past.
Well, then that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, exactly.
I always think, whenever something bad happens, I always loved hearing this. I've shared this story before, but this guru says, I'm going to teach you the secret of life, and I'll tell you what that is.
Yeah.
And he's got everybody listening. He's like, all right, ready? Here's the secret of life. I don't mind what happens. And that's all he said, and he walks away.
Yeah.
And because at the time everything's falling down, but when you look back at it, even something as bad as COVID, from what we all experienced, there are a million things like that you go, oh, I see why that happened.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't have had those relationships that now can bring other cool stuff here.
Yeah.
Had you not had to go through all the tussle and trouble of that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just. There is a reason for stuff sometimes, I think.
It's hard. It's hard to see it at the moment, but then when you get past it and you look back, you're like, oh, here's how the dominoes fell.
And as I get older, I go, I start to live in those moments now and go, okay, this is just going to, this too shall pass, And I think that's a big part of it. So out of those relationships had to have come Paul McCartney. How the hell? And what was that day like?
So
did they come out of these relationships?
It did.
Yeah.
And so AEG,
makes sense, right?
AEG is the promoter, right?
Okay. So they didn't just call up.
It was one of those things where they're looking for dates to start this whole thing off.
Right.
And I mean, the time frame that they're looking at, it was really tight between like when the conversation started and when the show's going to be there for a typical show. And the amount of days they want is large because they need to start the show someplace.
Right,
so
right.
It's like, it's
got to be just the right size.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and so when I was packing my bags up and saw the email come through, and I was actually talking to my wife at the time too on the phone, and I stopped listening to her because I saw the Paul McCartney thing, and I'm sitting there reading the book, and I hear this Matt, and I go, just had this email pop through about Paul McCartney. She goes, what? She goes, I go, yeah. I need to go.
Yeah, you do.
She goes, as in, he's coming to Spokane. I go, potentially. I go,
hold on now.
They're asking for avails right now. I need to go.
Wow.
And she goes, yeah, I'll see you at home.
And this was February?
December.
December.
Yeah.
Not that long
This
ago.
was the week before the week of Christmas.
Wow. Merry Christmas.
I think it was like the Thursday prior.
Right.
And so I send off all the stuff that they're looking for and get that over to them. That next morning I woke up in bed and it was my alarm goes off because I usually get up around like 6:15ish, 6:15ish, and sitting there in bed and I'm looking at my emails and there's an email already from Chad from AEG and
he's a different time zone probably anyway.
No, he's in Seattle.
Oh,
He's in Seattle, yeah. And so asking for something, and I give him the answer, and then email him back. I'm like, what's the potential of this?
Yeah,
right?
let me just ask.
And he sends that. He's like 10-15% probably.
10%.
Who knows? Like, really, don't get your hopes up.
Right.
Is what I kind of got.
They're
from him.
sniffing.
Like,
they're sniffing around
because like that whole night, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy that this is even happening.
Like to even
right?
get that email is awesome.
Yeah. And that adrenaline surge. And all that. And so it's like, and so the next morning I'm like, okay, whatever, right? And then I get the email again coming back. He's like, actually, the dates you have. We're having troubles with some other buildings. We're probably closer to like 25% at this moment. And so then I get my daughter up, start getting her ready. And I just
and when a guy like that says 25%, he means 63, right? He's just not going to tell you that.
Yeah, and so
25 means more than 25.
Yeah,
I've just got them.
And so get my daughter ready because I take her to school the majority of the mornings, and I drop her off at her place. And I'm walking out of there, and he's like, "This is becoming more of a real thing. I'm going to call you in a little bit. When can I call you?" And so I
now,
yeah. I was like, I'll be in my office in like 10, 15 minutes. And so he calls me. He's like, so Mark Spring, is Paul's production manager. He's like, Springo's going to be calling you sometime this afternoon. He has some questions for you. You got to walk through everything with him. I'm like, great, cool. Happily.
I can do this.
Yeah. And so
I just happen to be free.
Yeah. What's this number? So I know to take it.
Crazy.
And so he calls and we're talking and everything. And he's like, yeah, I want to fly up there, take a look at the venue. It's down to you and one
Mark
other.
Spring.
Yeah. It's between you and one other venue right at this point. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, when are you trying to get up here? I want to get up there Monday or Tuesday. I'm like, well.
Isn't it Christmas at this point?
No, this is the week leading up to Christmas, right? Because I think Christmas is like Friday or Saturday.
Yeah,
I can't
Saturday.
remember.
It was like a Saturday.
Yeah. And so he's like, I want to get up there Monday or Tuesday. I'm like, I'm supposed to be in Seattle. We planned this family thing to go over. And he's like, what was cool is like, oh, I don't want to be in the middle of that. I've been in too many of those situations myself. I'm not going to put you in that. Yeah. I'm like, dude. I was not expecting that, right?
No.
You got somebody with that type of talent. And he's like, tell me when you're going to be around. I'll figure it out.
You know what? Good for you, by the way. Because you did, you made your family, you honored that. Maybe that was part of it. You never know, right? I think that's great. Good for you.
And it was, and that's what we ended up. And so what was crazy too is like, that's what it just snowed a bunch too, right? And so, I told him on the phone, I was like, I don't even know. This is our plans. We've got hotel room. Yeah, and I don't. Well, not even that. I don't even know if I can get over the pass to get over there.
No kidding.
We're driving over.
You probably. Yeah, right. It was
nuts
right then. I remember.
And he's like, oh, well, just let me know. I'm going to be around this weekend. This is your cell. I go, yeah. He goes, okay. It's in my phone. Just call me. Let me know. Whatever happens. If I can get up there earlier, I'll get up there earlier. If not, I plan on being there Wednesday.
Wow.
Sweet. So, or Wednesday or Thursday, something like that. And so the next morning I wake up, because at that point it's Friday. And the next morning I wake up and take a look at because we were supposed to drive over on Sunday, take a look at the pass. The pass is closed down. Call him.
No, nothing was going, man.
We get my daughter to down for a nap, and I call him. I'm like, yeah, so we're not heading. The pass is closed. You want to come Monday? You want to come Tuesday? When are you coming? He's like, great. I'll fly in. I'll book everything. I'll be in Tuesday, and we'll take a look at the venue Wednesday.
Wow.
It's like, awesome. Let me help you with whatever you need. And he's like, no, you don't need to. And so I end up, our director of sales.
Call the Davenport immediately.
Our director of sales, I called her. I'm like, hey, so this is going on. And she's like, what? Like
Paul,
this is actually
Paul
happening.
McCartney, yeah.
And I go, yeah. Can you help me set up the production manager in one of the hotels? And she goes, yeah. What do you need? I go, I need the best room that they have, the presidential suite, wherever you can get it from. Because this is probably this is going to be the room that Paul's going to be staying in if he's here.
Yeah, no kidding.
And she goes, okay, can we pay for this? I'm like, just figure out.
Yes.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure this out, because we always have the public funds thing in the back of our mind.
Right. Well, you have to do that to be able to get the opportunity. Right.
And so, luckily, her relationships with all the hotels from the convention center side, the hotels came back, and she's like, I was like, well, who is this? She goes, I can't tell you. It's a VIP. We need because we got some special rates at the hotels, and she's like, I can't give you that rate, but we'll figure something out. Yeah, we'll figure something out, right? And so we were able to end up putting him up there. And when he got into town,
did you say the dumb part?
I'm not gonna.
Oh, you can't say.
Just because
I just guessed. I really don't know.
Yeah,
that's where I'd put him up. Yes, this dude. But anyway.
Yeah, because if he is, I don't know. I don't even know if he's gonna stay there, honestly. But at least, we know the room. Yeah.
I mean, the Mark. I don't know.
Yeah. No. But where Paul is, he knows that room, right?
Because probably buy a house.
Yeah. Probably over in Coeur d'Alene on the lake.
If he can get one in this town.
And so in that entire time, like, we set up the room for him. The room's under his name, but it's also under Jessica's name. And he goes to check in. I get this call from him because I knew when his flight landed and all this stuff. And he's calling me. I'm like, hey, you're here? He goes, yeah, I'm just getting into my room. I go, oh, nice. You need anything? He goes, yeah, I need to get into my room. I go, no, really, what do you need? He goes, I need to get my room. I can't get my room right now. I go, oh shit, you're serious?
Oh, he couldn't get his room?
He goes, yeah, they're sitting here saying that my name's not in the system. I go, what? I go, no, I've got the emails and everything. And I go, see if it's under Jessica. And he goes, Jessica Deary? And she goes, oh, yep, here it is. Here's your keys. And he goes, okay, cool, we're good. Well, then 2 minutes later, I get this call back, and he goes, what the F? Why the F did you put me in this room? I go, what?
Oh, no.
He goes, are you expecting me to bring all my high school buddies and have like this massive party in this thing? He goes, seriously, why did you put me in this thing? He goes, I don't need this.
Right.
He goes,
I just need a room, dude.
He goes, it's just me. I just need a room to stay in. I go, I know you just need a room to stay in. I go, but Paul's probably going to need a room to stay in when he's here, right? He goes, well, yeah. Oh, this is. I go, yeah. This will probably be here.
This is an option.
There's probably 1 to maybe 3 options in town. I go, this is probably the better option.
Right.
And he goes, oh, okay. I still don't need it.
Note to self.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then because we're meeting him up.
I still think you did the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
We meet up with Steph and I meet up with him for dinner that night too. And on the way down, as I'm leaving my house, he's like, hey, I'm down at O'Doherty's. Meet me for a drink beforehand. Because I was going to go down to work and just do like a couple quick things before I met up with him. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'll go have drinks.
Yeah, absolutely.
So met up with him. I think we had a beer or two there, and then we walked around the corner to Mizuna, and my assistant, when she was making the reservations there, she asked him, like, we need to be put away from everybody else. We need to be like in a corner. We can't have people overhearing what we're talking about because it's a VIP person coming in. Yeah, sensitive material. It can't be overheard. And so he and I come walking in, and Steph's already at the table, which is over in this other room. And the hostess goes, so do you really need to be over in this other? I go, yes, we do, please. She goes, okay, you guys are going to be the only ones. I'm like, perfect.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, there's a reason we asked.
And Springo just looks, he goes, really? I go, I figure we're going to be talking about this, right? He goes, okay, good point. Like, this makes sense. Right. He goes, we can open, and we walked over, he goes, oh, she wasn't joking. Like, we are the only ones over here.
Whole area, yeah.
And they eventually, because the restaurant, we met a little earlier than usual, and so the restaurant eventually got a little more busy, and they ended up putting one other group of people in the room, which is on the bar side of the room, on the back corner of it, like as far as you can get away from us, which is kind of funny. And we were joking about that. But yeah, it was like the whole thing. And then we end up taking them back and then meet up with them the next day. I have our team up at the arena, everyone from the box office to security to marketing to the production, the front of house manager. Like the IATSE union was there. I think we had anywhere between 15 to 20 people because of the rebrand that we're going through as well, or the process that we're starting. I pulled Jamie Rand over from Visit Spokane because I knew like the outreach of this whole thing. If we get this thing, this is going to be so big. The outreach, like
the
Visit Spokane becomes
what they're doing. Yes,
Visit Spokane becomes viable at this point, and
you need the help too.
Yeah, and so he's in the meeting and. like I said, there's like probably about 15 to 20 of us in there. And Springo's like, yeah, I want this meeting to be as small and intimate as possible. He comes walking in, he goes, okay, this is a lot more people than I thought. But the nice thing too, and this is where I give him a lot of respect too, because like he understands the family side of things and that aspect. But he comes walking in, and he goes, okay, he goes, I'm going to be very direct. We're going to just punch through some of my items. Barry, who is on the management side over with Paul over in the UK, he obviously can't get over here because of COVID.
Right.
He goes, Barry gave me a bunch of questions I need to ask certain people. Once we get through your department's questions, I don't want to take up any more time. You can. He goes, it's not that I don't want you here, but you can stay if you want to. But if you got work to do, go do.
Yeah, go. Yeah, sure.
And so we just
everybody there that needed to answer those questions was there.
Yeah, and so we went through department, and at the end, if people wanted to leave, people would leave, and like you saw the amount of people dwindle down, and a handful of them stayed just because like some of the marketing stuff transfers over to ticketing, some of like back and forth, some of the front of house stuff goes back of house and vice versa, and so. Kind of whittled through all of it, and then at the end we started walking around the facilities. He wanted to see not just the back of house stuff, but also the front of house and what the concourse looks like. What can we do? Because we're talking like merchandise sales and all that.
Right.
Because we're gonna have that going the whole week while he's here.
Right.
The days before. So, like, how can we do it and set it up to where people? Do we need to set up a location outside? It's like, no, we're going to put it in this room because we can have easy access from outside in, and we can just keep the flow going.
You've done this, yeah.
It's like this is how we need to do this, and so at the end of it, can't even say at the end of it. It was even that dinner. Steph asked, like, what's our potential here? And he's like, it's between you and one other city. And he goes, I've been to the other city. I wasn't really impressed.
Really?
And
you have any idea who that was? Probably never know.
I do.
Are you going to tell me?
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah, I will.
The opportunity's there should you choose to take it.
I can't say it right after I just said what I said.
We can edit that out.
Yeah. And so it was. He goes, so far, there's a dinner again. He goes, so far what I've seen from the city, because he walked around, he took the time the moment he landed, he was walking around, going through the park, going through the north bank of the river, and then walking through the south bank of the river. He was taking a look at how many businesses were closed, what was all shut up, taking a look at the vibrancy of the town, taking a look at like how many people are out, taking a look at the type of cars that are driving around, because it's a good indicator of money.
Interesting.
And seeing what was kind of going around, and like he's just being very cognizant of the surroundings, right? And I go back to Visit Spokane and the group that came together to put on the holiday festival,
right?
That month-long thing,
right? That was going on.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. Oh, man.
And so there's a lot more people downtown than usual than there had been at the time
during COVID. Especially,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, and so it was like great timing. It was perfect, and he was impressed by it all. And he goes, and he let us know that, and he's like, what really going to be the key indicator is what I see tomorrow. And so we go through the tour, and we get done.
No pressure.
Yeah, right.
I bet you slept really good that night.
And so we go through all of this, and I need to take him up to the airport. And so in the car, we jump in, and I'm like, so where are we with everything? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, you said this last night. Where are we? He goes, Matt, the decision comes between Barry and I. Barry and I are the ones that are communicating directly with Paul. And because Barry's not here, Barry's really relying on me with all of this stuff. And he goes, the stuff that I've already talked to Barry and reported back what I've seen so far. And from his side of things, he's been happy. He goes, so Barry's happy, I'm happy, Paul's going to be happy. He goes, Barry is happy, I'm happy, so this is what we're
going here.
This is what I'm pitching to Paul. And he goes, I can't promise you anything because eventually the decision comes to Paul.
Sure.
But this is how it's happened in the past. He can override, and he has on multiple different decisions we've always made.
For a variety of reasons.
Yeah,
whoever knows one.
For whatever it is.
Do whatever the hell he wants,
Yeah, it's Paul.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's why he gets to be Paul McCartney.
Yeah. And he goes, if it's up to me, this is where we're coming. and this is where we're starting.
Wow.
And I was like,
You must
it
have
was
been
one of those
jacked.
like, yeah, I was like, don't smile too much, don't smile too much.
I can't get this off. That's so awesome. Wow.
Yeah, and so we get to the airport, and he's
amazing.
again appreciative of everything that we like the team and I were able to do and all that. And it came down to, he's like, well, we'll be in touch and be seeing you later. I go, hopefully we'll be seeing you later. And he looks at me. I go, I'm not going to believe it until it happens.
Yeah, no kidding. I wouldn't. I mean, yeah, right.
He kind of chuckles. He goes, well, that's a good mindset. He's like, he understood where I was coming from because of what he was saying. Like with Paul changing his mind, he goes, all right. Well, he goes, we'll be in touch. And I was like, okay. And he goes, by in touch, I'm hoping I don't talk to you until after the holidays because he goes, there's all the family.
This is already,
obviously.
We got this done too. Yeah, probably. Wow.
And he like his goal was not to communicate with me at all because of like he's got his own family stuff too.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So,
yeah.
And that's like their team's mindset is that right? And so I think I ended up getting like 1 or 2 emails over like a whole week period of time. So it's like, okay, this is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
He's still working on this. Continuing
to be hot.
But then we get into January, and it's like because Omicron's starting to spike up, or had been spiked up.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
No
okay,
kidding.
is this even going to happen? Because
Right.
originally it was like, let's put this on sale mid-January and announce it and put it up on sale. And it's like, okay, we're not even getting any information really right now. Every once in a while there's like an email coming through from on the ticketing side for the ticket build, but
it's been a little dark.
Yeah, and just because we're building everything out doesn't mean
it's
anything to me,
It's
right?
not a go yet.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, and it's just like basic stuff too that we're maneuvering and just changing the scaling to make the financials still work on the promoter's end. And so we're kind of going through that, and it's like our Denise Hammond's our box office manager. Actually, I don't even know what her title is right now because she's been promoted, and then she's not demoted, but she's had to be like moved around because of COVID and all this stuff. But she's amazing. She's awesome at what she does, and her and I are talking like she probably got tired of me like every other day. Have you heard any more? Have you heard anything? I haven't heard anything. It's like, and like both of us are sitting on pins and needles and.
Probably not some good sleepless nights there a little bit, or just
it is what like for my mindset. It is
everything
what it
you
is.
could do.
Yeah,
so, right.
Like I've done what I can. Like this is either going to happen or it's
right.
not.
It's not. Yeah,
And
it'd just be nice to know though.
Yeah. For everybody.
For everybody. Yeah.
And so eventually communication kind of starts back up, and we passed that time period too, and we're going to announce originally. So it's like, oh crap, like what happened almost, and. Communication. I'm talking with AEG and Chad, and he's like, "Yeah, we're not getting a lot, but we're still kind of moving in the right direction." Like, I think they're like we're both sitting there. We're probably just waiting to get past COVID right now, and and so then towards the end of the month, all the communication all of a sudden just like starts spiking up, and we just keep going on and start moving forward on all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, yeah, we're announcing this date and going on sale this date. It's like. We got it.
So that's how you didn't know until then, really.
And and we still didn't have official confirmation on it yet that had come through from AEG. And Chad's like, we're moving forward with this as if this is confirmed. We're not officially confirmed yet.
Wow.
And I haven't had that official confirmation to pass on to you, but we are moving forward. I think this is happening. Like, I am 95% positive this is happening.
But you're still like, it's still not 100%.
Yeah. There's still a chance.
Yeah, there's still a chance. Wow.
And so at that point, it's like, okay, well, all of us are moving forward. We're coming up with all these different marketing and game plans right over the announce and then what we can do to support because it's Beatlemania, right? And that's what's expected when the show comes to town. And
right.
Like, how can we bring that? And so we're like Jamie and Holly's our marketing manager, and like we're always like talking and brainstorming all these different ideas, and, kind of coming up with all these different things. And then like on the announce, it's like a lot of cities are able to do like these huge glamorous things, and they're like, nah, Spokane, you don't need to do anything. It's a small town, like it's our expectations. You don't need to do anything. We should be fine with like a normal announce. I'm like, well, that's.
Fine for you.
Yeah.
But not for us.
We want to have some fun with it.
No, because it's a big deal, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the biggest concert that's ever come here, easily.
I would
By
say
100 times? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, there's been some great bands. I mean,
music's always subjective to the person, right?
I know.
To an extent.
I know. But
and
I went to Pearl Jam in Missoula.
Yeah.
Right?
A
couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That was a great concert.
Yeah.
And, I'm huge Pearl Jam fan. And Eddie Vedder's like, I was out there when Paul McCartney came here because, I'm he's the biggest, fan, a huge McCartney fan. And I think Pearl Jam was one of the best concerts that's probably been in this city for, it was a great concert. Yeah. But this would dwarf that, I would think.
I put it up there with, obviously, Elton. And,
absolutely.
It was, in my opinion, my personal opinion, yes, it is.
I think it is.
And then we had Metallica too, and you can look at the numbers.
Right, everybody's got their own music taste for sure. But I mean, across the board,
from the legendary,
every generation, the biggest name recognition for sure.
Yeah,
you can't say the brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and so we start going through the process of this is what we'd like to do. We could do this and this, and I talked to Rob Curley over at the spokesman.
Sure.
Because the announce was so early. The announce was supposed to originally be at 5 a.m. And so I talked with him. I was like, hey, I've got this artist. You're going to put him on the front page. I know you are, because I know who you are. And I know your love for entertainment.
He will, for sure. Yeah, personally.
And just from some stuff that he and I've worked on too, on Kansas and a couple other things that we wanted to do. And, here's my idea. I want to have this on the front page on Friday as we announce this thing. Can we do this? And he's like, you're telling me that you want me to put this on the front. When can I hear this person? And I kind of start talking kind of around it. And he's like, I think I know who this is. I think I know who it is. I'm like, okay. And he goes, yes, we will do this. I go, okay. I need to get approval from Paul's team. I didn't tell him Paul, but I need to get approval from Paul's team. And
Mr. X.
Yeah. He was in my calendar of who shall not be named, or something like that. Or he whom shall not be named. Named.
That's good.
And the entire run of it was. And so we reach out and they're like, yeah, no, we just don't want to do that. We don't want to worry about this getting leaked out to the public before the actual announce happens. It's this would have been the coolest thing to be able to have everybody wake up in the morning
and see it
in the paper, right?
Yeah,
and then also have the press conference at that same time. Right. The majority of people are getting up.
Yeah, and the memory of that kind of preserved forever.
Yeah. And
that's cool.
And then eventually the announce time got kicked back an hour, so we wouldn't have been able to do it anyways. But
the best laid plans.
Yeah. And so it's they eventually was mentioned that we could do the press conference, but only if you can promise that the press will show up. I'm like, I know they will be here because we don't do this that often. And when we say there's a decent announcement,
we have not wasted this I yeah.
And I've never done this, and that's
they'll be here.
The media contacts I have and that Steph has, I can promise you, if not all of them, the majority will be.
Right.
And so, and they did. They all of them except for I think one person showed up.
Wow.
And so it went off. The plan that I was hoping for went off.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was great. And what all of us, from Holly and myself and AEG, how it went off, it was exactly what we were hoping for. And then the spokesman going above and beyond. Because after I was able to announce who it was, Rob's on the phone with me. Hey, I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. Here's all the articles that we're doing.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah, of course, right.
And it was
talk about earned media.
And that's where his brain is so great, because it's all these concepts that he had.
For sure.
It's that didn't even come across our plate. And and him being such a guru of music to begin with.
Right.
It's he is. Spokane's lucky to have him. One.
Yeah.
And for him to be able to come in and do and produce what they did was absolutely phenomenal.
Right.
And it didn't go unnoticed. AEG saw it all. Paul's team saw it all.
Cool.
They've been blown away by what Spokane has done with zero budget on the announce.
Right. Just well, and that's the beauty of, I think, one of the magic things about, and why we like to do a lot of work in mid-sized cities, is because everybody knows somebody. It doesn't take long for something to get around here, right? And everybody's talking about it. And I mean, so two questions. One, how many times have you been asked for tickets?
I don't know.
What's that?
I don't know. I quit.
You can't count it. Yeah, can't count that high. And then the other one is when they went on sale so quickly. That's just, of course, not a surprise.
Yeah. So no, all of us were expecting that.
Yeah,
amazing.
Anything surprise you?
What was really cool was I was sitting in Denise's office as we're like 10, 15 minutes away from officially going on sale for the Amex pre-sale.
Right, the Amex pre-sale, which I tried and failed.
Yeah,
but I tried.
Trust me, a lot of people.
Not everybody failed. Yeah.
The queue line for that thing was over 17,000 people.
Oh my God.
That's people, not tickets. People.
Individuals purchasing multiple tickets if they can.
That's individual accounts open, getting in a line.
Crazy.
In a digital line.
Right.
And so...
And I knew doing it, I'm like, there's no way in hell. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll get lucky. But, and you just kind of know. I mean, the arena holds 12 or whatever. You know?
And even in this configuration, because like with the sight lines and stuff, it's 12 if we're in like a 360 configuration with floor seating and all that stuff. Right. This we're sitting at I think it's at like 10.8.
That's nice.
So, and it's like, and we knew this was going to happen too, right? Because if you look at that entire bill of everywhere he's going on the tour,
they're huge.
They're all stadiums.
They're
other than Climate Pledge,
50,000 plus, right?
Yeah. And so it's like we are the most quaint and intimate venue out of all this. So, guess if you're over in New York or Northern California or Southern California.
You're a mile away.
Yeah, and you're.
These tickets are amazing.
And if you've got money, because and that's where like the housing and everything industry comes in for us, and like Coeur d'Alene and Schweitzer, where there's these people that literally fly into Schweitzer to go ski for the weekend from New York, and they have a condo or a house or whatever in the area. Guess where they're flying to come see the show because they already have something here.
Right.
And the zip code analysis proves this too, because like it's all up and down the East Coast coming over here, all up and down California, like cities that have money. You can see it, Chicago, all these different places. It's nuts. It's really cool to see.
Yeah.
And so that was just the Amex.
Right, and they're finding the city.
Yeah.
You know, in a way it's never been found before.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've heard of us because of Gonzaga. Yeah. I can't even say it wrong.
I know. Gonzaga in Spokane. Yeah, that's how you're supposed to pronounce it.
And so they know about it. They know about the city from that, and then you throw this on to like all the marketing materials that are going out, and Spokane's at the top of the list.
Well, and that's the thing about having done so much work with Gonzaga athletics over the years for years. I used to do a bunch of stuff with the coaching staff and the university for 15 years or more, and when it first started going, what I realized, and we would talk with those guys, was the money deals are great, the TV deals are great, the money that comes in is great, filling the arena up is great, all of that stuff. It is the amazing impact of exposure, over and over and over. When Gonzaga is the number one seed 5 out of 6 years, the amount of times that name is announced. Yep. And now Jimmy Fallon's picked it up for this tournament, and last year, Jimmy Kimmel did it a few years ago. That name isn't being pronounced incorrectly anymore, and Spokane follows right along. So you see that town more and more. There's a lore that's being built outside of here about how cool this place is because of what that has happened. It's America's team. Yeah. This is America's city. And it can't hurt what you're doing.
It absolutely helps.
And now this happens. It's another kind of. I think it's a leap, right?
Yep, exactly. It's another.
They build off each other.
Exactly. Yeah. The dominoes are falling. 100%. The momentum's going forward.
Yep.
And especially coming out of COVID too, right? Like we couldn't ask for it for a better time.
Oh.
And for this, and I kind of alluded to it in the press conference, where it's like, this is us coming out. This is like a huge push and leap coming out to get all this vibrancy back.
Yeah.
And we're bringing people in. The hotels are going to be packed with people coming in. The restaurants are going to be packed. People are going to be walking around all over the place.
Right. It's already happening.
Oh yeah. And it's like this is kind of like we've done it.
The timing
we did it.
Couldn't be better.
And COVID's still around. We're still gonna. It's gonna be around for a while.
Right.
But we're reopening. We're moving in the right direction at this point.
For sure. And the other question I hear is, why here? Why did he pick here? And the best I could guess would be, hey man, if I'm going to put on a huge concert tour, I don't know how many cities is this? 20, 30, all over
15.
the world. 15 all around the world, right?
United States is 15.
15 in the United States. So, and like you said, you're playing major cities. the biggest cities in the country.
The majority of them, yeah. And then
you want to get a shakedown.
Yeah.
You want to do a dress rehearsal. You want to do a good. You want to. I mean, maybe that's not the right word. He's not going to look at it that way. But you need to get the kinks out and you need to get this thing.
Yeah.
You know, but what better place to do it in a smaller?
In the kinks out is the production moving in, production loading.
Production moving out.
Like,
they've never done this before.
Yeah.
It needs that lead up time. Anything you do for the first.
And that's what they were looking for, and that was part of the other
of
cities that they were looking at was Eugene and Boise, and that was part of it, right? It's like, one, we had to have the dates available, which I had more than what they needed, and they're actually utilizing more than what they originally asked for, because the production's so large, and it's like they're going to come in and pre-rig one of the days, and then from the city aspect, it's like they want something to start in something smaller, to move to the next best thing,
right?
And it's to kickstart it. It's to iron the kinks out. It's which they're doing a month in advance.
Right, right. So there's going to be a lot more activity here than there would be in most other cities that it's going to go to, I would guess.
Yeah.
Just because they have to.
Yeah. That's exactly.
Cool.
And so like their whole crew is going to be in town
and that's also cool
for a week.
Right. You're going to get to that's such a cool thing, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a great city for a crew to hang out in. It just is.
It is. And what's
easy to get around. I mean,
coming out of COVID, we've had more of this too, because JoJo's done it, Shinedown's doing it. We had Christmas Carol for an entire 3 weeks in the theater doing it.
Right, the best places for those guys to be.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the messaging too, that when Springo was here, is like, we're already doing this.
There's people just like you already doing this.
Yeah, and then the relationship too that I built over the COVID dead period of nothing going on in our industry was with Oakview Group, who owns and operates Climate Pledge and the Kraken, right? And so we've got a booking partnership with them, and their whole goal is to, just like Paul, start a tour here. The ones that they, like Oakview Group is helping route with Live Nation.
Right.
Start a tour in Spokane,
right,
jumping over to Climate Pledge and head back down the coast.
Right on. Yeah. Makes total sense.
Talking with Springo about this, like, we're already doing it with these things. The plan with Climate Pledge is to do this to begin with. There's synergy between the two buildings already.
Yeah.
Their staff is going to be in town as well for the show, because they're looking at production, they're looking at the marketing, like they're looking at everything.
Right. You're going to have a niche as the kickoff spot.
Yeah. And that's
like, if you want to brand yourself as a kickoff spot, which is really good because that crew stays here longer, they get to know the place better.
It's extra
revenue. It's affordable.
Yeah.
It's easy to get around. Nobody's bugging them.
Yep.
I mean,
you can
hopefully
you can start in Spokane, where you've got less people. All the amenities that you normally would have in a larger city are here, with the restaurants and all that,
and closer
stuff.
and easier to get to.
And it's a walkable town. It's
totally.
A walkable city.
The park's amazing. The river's amazing.
Yeah, the union rates are cheaper than every other city that you go to. All the majors, obviously.
Right.
The facility that we have is top notch.
Right.
So it's like all of the infrastructure and everything's there, and so that's what they're that's what they've been looking at. And
wow.
Kind of just moving it to that next leap that I was hoping to get to with the arena is happening now. Like, my personal goal and my personal opinion is we should be averaging 2 shows a month in the arena.
Wow.
Throughout the year, right?
How cool would that be? Because I would guess if they're the right shows, demand's not going to be a problem. People will show up here.
There's so many different genres, right? I mean,
and this town turns out.
Yeah,
I mean, they do. That's the other part of this. I mean,
if I was booking 24 country shows, that's not going to
work. Right. No, thank God.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
To all my country friends.
but it's like jumping between country, and like Spokane, we do need to dive and do better job of getting into the R&B and hip hop.
Right.
And then the pop side of things too. And that's been a conversation that I've been having.
You need to talk to my son about that, because he's doing that all the time with these guys. Yeah.
And then
that's cool.
So like jumping into those genres, and then once you start doing that, you're not hitting the same folks over and over and over again.
No, right.
Those are genres that have never really existed in town. So let's bring them in town.
And they need to.
That's just
it's what makes
content.
a great city.
Yeah.
First of all.
Yeah. And then the Christian genre, like, we've always had some of these larger acts come through.
Right.
But we've never done anything down in the theater side. And
cool.
That's starting to progress a little bit more with another relationship that I built over the time, where I mean, just in October alone, I had the same promoter ask me for the same date for 2 different shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good problem.
Yeah, it is.
Wow, that's cool.
And part of that too is like, okay, so we've got these 2 venues. Well, the stadium's coming on board, which is going to bring a whole other size of act along with it.
No kidding.
Which my goal,
right, those outside events when they're not in town.
Yeah, and my goal on that,
Great idea.
and I've got no problem saying this publicly, I'm a huge Rage Against the Machine fan. They've never played in Spokane.
That would be
and
badass.
The best part too, my Live Nation Territorial, he's always wanted and has never booked a Rage Against the Machine show.
Let's go.
We both have the same goal.
You're gonna get that. As soon as that stadium's built, why don't they kick off the stadium? That'd be cool.
And what was awesome is I was over in Seattle talking to the president of the entire region for Live Nation, and Creston, the president for our area, ends up calling Tristler, and Tristler's like, hey, I'm actually talking to Matt right now, and he puts him on speakerphone. And he goes, hey, Creston, has Matt told you about the stadium that they're building? He goes, yeah, it's going to be awesome, and the capacity to everything's perfect, is what we need. He goes, yeah, you finally have the ability to get your Rage show up into Spokane,
there you
in
go.
your area. He goes, I know, I'm stoked.
Okay.
So it's just like, hopefully it's just a matter of time at that point.
Wow,
right?
that is gonna change the whole
stars
dynamic
aligning
too, and they're all so connected, really close.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and it's just like the routing's perfect, like everything's coming together. And then the other conversations that we're having too with all of this, right? It's Spokane. Every venue needs each other. We can't operate without each other.
Right.
And I'm not talking about ours specifically. I'm talking about everybody in the city.
Right.
You have to go from the club,
the Fox and the Bing and every
clubs,
every
everything,
little, the
right?
clubs,
because all your local singers, they've got goals and aspirations.
Absolutely.
Why? Because they want to be up on the stage at the arena
exactly
or the
right.
theater at some time.
Right.
And they're not going to play the club if they don't have those goals.
My son having a sound studio, if those guys are in town and need to record something or whatever, that's one of the things that happens.
Yeah.
It spills into lots of places.
Yeah. And
the
so
impact.
Being able to see that jump, I use Greta Van Fleet for this example because they did that, right? They're from a small town in Michigan, playing the bars that they had there. Somebody just happened to stumble by and like, holy shit, these guys
are good. Yeah.
And next thing you know, they're playing in Detroit then, and then being seen even more. And it's like,
open for somebody.
We need to go get these guys. We need to sign these guys, get them out. Next thing you know, their first tour, they're playing, I don't know their exact numbers and everything, but I know they ended up putting one show on sale at the Paramount over in Seattle.
Wow.
And then putting a second one on immediately as well.
Wow.
And so it's like, that's the progression.
They build
right?
on each
and
other.
And like going to the knitting, like for here, it could be just playing one of the clubs in town to the knitting factory, maybe the Bing, or jumping from the knitting factory over to the theater or the other building or the other infrastructure that I'm building at the podium right now.
Right. You can go up the line.
It's a step ladder,
right,
yeah. If you
exactly.
Need to.
So you have what's coming up next?
So
that you can tell me if I release this in April.
If you release this in April, yeah. So we just announced Jim Gaffigan.
That's great.
This week.
And again, with every one of these questions comes, and how do I get my ticket? Yeah. But go ahead. It's not why I'm having you here.
We've got so part of like my goal too, right, is because even growing up in town, like first concert I went to.
I was going to ask you, that was one of my questions. Okay. What was your first concert?
I'm so glad I was a middle school kid, and I came out of the show high, not even smoking anything.
The Spokane Coliseum.
Yeah.
The Boone Street Barn.
Yep.
I don't even know what show, but I'm guessing.
And it was Puddle of Mud, Deftones, and Godsmack.
Right.
First show I ever went to, and it was amazing. It was fun. I was hooked at that point.
How, like 14?
I know I had to be dropped off, right? And our parents had to pick us up. And then funny. Incubus and Linkin Park are right there right afterwards.
Yeah, right. Yep.
In
that era.
Yep. And so I don't even remember what we're talking about.
Your favorite concert. And then what's coming up?
Yeah, so there's a lot. I mean, like, just the shows in April, we've got a lot coming up in April. Like Eric Church is selling really well. Got Santana,
right?
Gabriel Iglesias, obviously Paul. May we jump into Mercy Me? That's all at the arena, and then at the theater, we're our friends Blippi is coming in town. One of those kids shows. Need to Breathe.
You're gonna there'll be more kid shows here because you've got kids. So that's if people are like, why are there so goddamn many kid shows? It's because Matt has kids.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. I'm just be ready, people. It's totally true.
Need to Breathe. Bert Kreischer, we've got 2 shows with him. He's hilarious if you haven't watched him yet. And then we jump into a full 3-week run of Hamilton coming out of that.
That's
Bob Dylan.
gonna be great, yeah.
Bob
Dylan.
Like, so when we announced Paul McCartney, I purposely said in that thing, because I had been working on this for years, right?
Paul, but
Bob
yeah. Dylan, yeah.
It goes back to, we had a conference in Chicago.
Oh, he's amazing. And
the agent that does a lot of his routing is out of Chicago, and I knew this, and specifically reached out to him. My wife and I and my daughter, my sister lives over in North Carolina, so we jumped over there first, stayed with her. She flew up with me,
Cool.
with my family, early to Chicago, got there early. I knew I was going to get there early. I reached out to him like, hey, I'm going to be in town between this date and this date, which was
a time,
which was before the convention and after the convention. Like, you don't have to be anywhere around the convention if you don't want.
Right.
I'm more than willing to meet you wherever you need to.
Right, yeah, exactly.
End up meeting him for a drink. Him and his, I can't remember if his assistant or production manager, I can't remember, for a drink outside the restaurant that his daughter was having her 21st birthday at. So we had a half-hour, 45-minute conversation before he went inside with his family. And then her and I think it was it was his marketing manager. That's who it was. Her and I sat there and talked for a little bit longer. And had another drink, and took this before the conference. This was back in 2019, and we had something on the books for him going into 2020.
Wow.
And then at that point, COVID hits, and my conversation changes from, okay, are we having this, to, when's the next time he's going to be up in the Northwest?
Yeah, right.
In the original conversation, he's like, probably not until 23, like the way we're looking at routing stuff.
Right.
But then over the time that I'm assuming COVID had something to do with it. I don't know, but time frames changed. Like, they already had stuff set up in 2020, 2021, going into 22. And something changed because all of a sudden now it's like, okay, he's going to be here in 22 or coming through the area. And I get an email saying, hey, we're looking for him. Wow. And at the time we weren't really sure if it was a theater act or if we should put him in the arena or whatnot. Because it's Bob Dylan. Like, right.
Come on.
In my opinion, and like for somebody like him, like, you want something intimate. And that's what our conversation was about.
Absolutely.
And
the arena is not the place for him.
He's not jumping around up on stage. No. I mean, he's
not 79 years old. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I know that's the other thing. Paul, dude.
Paul is, yeah.
Like, do you think this is his last? I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised one way or the other.
Yeah. And so with Bob, it was like,
amazing.
Okay, I knew this was a potential, right? And I've been working on this for so long and finally have this date. And this came through after, like, right after Paul, like, really confirmed or whatnot. We were comfortable. Like, we're moving forward with Paul. All of a sudden,
hurt.
This is coming through, and it was one of those things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have the 2 best songwriters of all time. Within a month of each other.
Yeah, if Shakespeare was alive, maybe you'd have him. But
wow.
When are you getting Springsteen?
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, it's a lot easier to get Bruce after you've got the other two.
It is.
Tell you what.
And it's and that's.
Do you think that Paul had anything to do with, Bob?
I don't think so. I honestly don't. It's just
the way schedules work.
And it just.
But now you're top of mind.
It is. Yeah.
This is a top of mind place that never used to be.
Yeah.
When we were kids, it wasn't.
And even
it isn't.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's and I think most people that live here don't realize that. Yeah. It's amazing.
And so, like, being able to get him to come through now too, it's like that. And so the Paul announcement was like the second, according to Billboard, the second best songwriter of all time. It's like, I don't know if we're gonna be able, like, when we're now. I didn't know when we were announcing Bob before I was gonna be able to do like a press conference or something. But I wanted to set it up to be like, we already have the second best.
No, we're good.
I've got the best.
Yeah.
We brought the best.
Right.
My team and I, we were able to get the best.
I think Paul would even agree.
Yeah. And so it's like to get both of them and have them both within a month of each other is just crazy.
So that's going to happen when?
In May
No way.
Yeah.
So April is McCarthy.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney in April.
Literally a month away from each
Bob Dylan in May.
Yeah.
Well done, sir. Well played. That's awesome. Well, hey man, thanks for doing this. Thanks for doing what you do for this place.
Oh yeah.
And hustling and fighting and scratching and clawing and believing.
Yeah, it's well, that's the like. I don't know how much more time.
No, there's no time. It's a podcast.
Because it's
this doesn't even exist. I don't even know what this is.
Well, that's the cool thing. It's like there's so much more that I have. That, like,
you're a two-parter, dude. We're coming back for another one.
That Steph even knows. It's like she's just looking at me like, how are you like in the time frame of me and what I want to do, right? Is like I'm working right now on building the podium out as another concert venue where it's a large club.
Right. So explain that a little bit. That's unbelievable.
So it's like it's the podium. The podium's been kind of funny, right? It's like the entire time we've been, and this has been years in the making with the podium,
right?
And it was a conversation that Kevin even had, and it was like it was always just like it can't be done. It just can't be done. Like we can't do this. And
this is a decade conversation.
Yeah, and then Steph took over, and Steph's resiliency on so much.
It makes so much sense.
And Eric Sawyer is just like, no, we need to do this. We can do this, and like everything was thrown at them to just kill the project, right? And so it's one of those buildings where it's like everything that's come along with it, it's always been like it can't be done. Well, when I brought up the concept, and Steph and I are out golfing, and it's like, we could do this in the podium, and I started explaining like curtain it off, like WAMU Theater.
You're not booked every day at the podium.
Yeah, and I keep hearing like the timeline of like the sports season, right?
Yeah, there's a calendar.
Yeah,
sure.
And it's like we could do this in the during the off season. It's like we could do concerts in here. It's set up perfectly. It's no different than WAMU Theater over in Seattle, other than the drape curtains don't adjust the capacities. We've got one set capacity for the most part. We can adjust the floor and the bar set up on the floor to adjust the capacity to make it look full, or if it's a show that's less sold, we can adjust the bars to make it look more, or we can retract the bars back and pack a bunch of people in.
Right, it's a dance part. It's an EDM style, at least, if not others.
Yeah, and so we start talking about that, and she's like, "You really think this is feasible?" And I go, "Just based off because the building's not built, but I go like based off the drawings I've seen and the dirt that I've seen flying around inside the shell." Yeah. It's like I really do, and so I started digging into it more and more, and then we had a study done on it that came back so negative that.
Never believe them.
Yeah, everyone's like, this can't be done. And
How many studies have killed innovation? It's unbelievable.
And I'm like, can I see the study? And like, it was to the point where
Good for you.
It took me a week to get the study. And I started going through the study. I'm like, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true.
Right?
That's not true. And like, I had all these different ideas on how to do it. And like and the good thing about the study too, and it coming out the way it was, it made us think even more outside the box, right? Like, how could we do this? Like, we're not confined into like a shell of what we have to do because we're creating something. Right. We got to be the artist.
Well, and that's the thing about innovation, right? Yeah. And if you listen to attorneys and bankers forever, nobody does anything interesting, right? Yeah. And one of my favorite stories about that is the ATM. Have you ever heard the story about the ATM machine? So the ATM was actually invented in the 70s or something like that, and they did major. Like big time focus groups, and no one, 98%, 93%, some ridiculous amount. Yeah. No person that they surveyed thought that they would ever use an ATM machine. Yeah. They still what are you talking about? This is the dumbest thing ever. I would never go get cash out of a machine. Yeah. And now, can you imagine your life without one? Yeah. And
those people are the ones that are probably still not using it and still have a flip phone if they have that.
No, but I mean, people just didn't. We don't know what we want until we see it. Yeah. Like if you ask us what we want, we're probably going to go, that doesn't, I would never use that. And then when it's there, sometimes you really do have to build it and they will come. And
I've always been a huge, I've always used.
Your intuition's right.
I've used Steve Jobs as a lot of like inspiration on a lot of things, right? Because
absolutely.
He was the same thing. He was told no so many times.
A million times.
I try not to treat people around me the way he treated people.
Walt Disney was the most famous man in the world. And was turned down 8 times to build Disneyland. Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah,
I mean,
and so using that, it was like I used that study, and it made me think, okay, if if this is saying we can't do it because of this, well then let's figure out a way where we can do it.
There is a way.
Yeah, and we can get.
And
we
you
can
know
get
in your gut there is, then there must be.
Yeah,
I know.
And so it's just like
that.
was taking like where the stage is set and the podium. It's right underneath the big screen in there. And so it's like we've got 2 loading bays here, right? Well, we were planning on using the actual loading bay.
On the west side.
On the west side. We were actually
by the closer to the arena. That.
Yep.
My brother owns the building right next to that.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
You probably know that.
Yep.
He's a hard bargainer.
Yeah. And so that was the original plan. It's like, well, the push is forever to get equipment across. And while I'm standing in there one day, I'm like, shit, if I'm putting the stage right here, festivals build out their stages large, like the bigger festivals, they'll build out their stages larger than what the normal human knows about and sees. Right. And so it's like, this is all going to be curtained off. Let's just build a stage up to those 2 bay doors back there.
Smart.
And they can just back straight into the thing, drop straight off onto the stage.
Yep.
So I got that inspiration from festival, and then they do every once in a while over at WAMU Theater. They'll just bring the semi truck straight into WAMU and drop it off on the stage too. And I saw that, I'm like, this is what we just need to do.
Right.
Like that problem solved. And so then
that's a selling point, actually.
Yeah, it is. It turned into a problem to a selling point.
Yeah, 100%.
Because now instead of having to push, like
because that's always logistics is huge.
Yeah. And they're used to pushing equipment 100, 150 feet for like arena shows and stuff like that, maybe, and sometimes less. But like now all of a sudden it's we're pushing it 20 feet and we're there. So like, we're not even on the stage. So, it's not we're pushing it to the stage. We're on the stage and it's like literally sitting on the thing.
Right. So when do you think this can happen?
What's
your dream? If you can wave your magic wand, and you've done a pretty good job up
there. If I could wave that, I'd hope it'd be like midsummer. But like the reality is, because there's so much that we have to do with the acoustic curtaining and then the acoustics in the building in general, that it's going to take a little bit longer. Like there's the acoustics, it's a 3-phase thing that we're putting in. The first 2 phases are going in immediately in April, and that's to dampen the noise from just track and volleyball and everything that's in there.
Right.
But then also to move the graduations and host graduations in there to make it more talkable.
Oh, that's cool.
So those are the first 2 phases, and then the 3rd phase is to make it concert ready, and that will probably happen. My hope is that construction starts in like June.
Wow.
To where we can build.
So 2023, this could be going on.
I've got stuff on the books right now for October.
Wow.
Of this
year.
And
so this again fills another slot in those different size arenas.
Yep. Because
that then make this place even more vibrant.
Yeah.
There's stuff that can fit in there that maybe doesn't fit in other stuff. Right?
Yeah. And well, going back to that stepping stone too, right? In Spokane.
Yeah, exactly.
Because as a band, as you're coming through, you're wanting to build the following and the repertoire with every city that you're going into. Well, in the past, it was we had a couple clubs. Got the Knitting Factory. There's not a huge jump between the Knitting Factory and the Bing, but there's a huge jump between the Knitting Factory and the theater.
Right.
And then from the theater, you go up to the arena, which is talking 8,000 more seats, right?
Right.
And so that's a huge jump.
Yeah.
And so it hits that jump. We're talking between 2,500 to 5,500 people potentially in that thing.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden it becomes more usable. And then a lot of the shows that we're losing in the theater because we don't have the GA pit ability in the theater for the shows that want to have that and want the people standing in front of the stage, we're losing those shows coming through the area. Like 2020, before even COVID hit, I lost AJR because we didn't have that.
Wow. So you can fill those now.
Yeah, so we can fill that now, and we've got a place to put it. And so we're not losing that. And the neat thing too is going back to Live Nation, our rep, Creston down in Boise, he runs the Revolution down there, the Revolution Hall. Him and his brother actually started back when it was the Big Easy.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah. Originally in Boise, that was those guys.
Yeah, it was him. And so then he sold it off to Knitting Factory. He created his stuff down in Boise, and his club down there, I think it's a 2,000, 2,200 cap venue. So a lot of all the big stuff that he has coming through, it's a natural fit that he's just sliding right into here that we're working on. And then all these shows that we're potentially losing are now here.
Wow.
And then what
it just keeps everything coming through here.
Yeah, it does. And it keeps it keeps the fan engaged more or less.
And that they're looking for more opportunities to see more stuff.
Yeah. And it keeps that. And the other thing too is like we see a lot of it is the ticket prices going up, right? Well, that's because you're jumping from the Knitting Factory at a $25, $35 ticket. Then the next time you see him, you're paying
at the arena
75,
right,
100 plus,
right.
So it's like it's making that reality in the cognitive mindset of, okay, we've jumped to here, now he's worth this much, now he is worth this much.
Right. And by the way, I saw him when he was back here.
Yeah.
And that means more. Yeah.
One of the coolest shows I've ever seen is 21 Pilots over the Knitting Factory. Like, my wife and I will never forget that. It was crazy.
Wow.
And that's, like, you can't get that anymore.
Right. No, exactly.
And so it was one of the coolest, most rowdy, most fun shows I've ever been to. And it's like, that's what we're looking to progress, right?
And those bands are fond of it. They remember. They remember when they were here playing those smaller venues, and now they're back doing the big one. That's what they're
and they remember the cities too.
They remember the cities, and this town treats people good.
Yeah, it's not just about the venue; it's about the entire city and what the cities and the amenities
right.
the city has to offer.
And they can hang around and walk through it, and I tell you, the size of it's just perfect.
Yeah, and there's a lot of artists that come through that they know that the golf courses around here are good.
Yeah, right.
They literally will take a day off to go golf.
100%
on their way here.
Yeah.
Like there was.
Yep.
And I've golfed with one of their managers out in Coeur d'Alene just because they're coming from Montana over.
Right.
And
let's play.
Let's go play. Yeah. So it's like, cool. It's just one of those things. Like, and so it's like everything that the city has, it's great. And then again, going back to the walkability and all that. So it really, from a markability standpoint, it's really, everything's there and everyone sees it. And I mean, everybody from like the industry side is starting to see it. And then that's where like our conversations and this, going back to the things that I have on my plate that I'm building out and everything. I've got the podium, but then the stadium's coming on board and there's all these plans with that. Well, along with those plans come a music festival. Like I'm not dropping that dream.
Which is right back to where you started.
Yeah.
How cool is that? Of course. Now you get the keys to the car.
And it's coming full circle. And it's not.
That's going to be amazing.
And it's not. And it's something like I believed in it back when I originally did it. The Spokane was ready. I knew that when I did it originally, when my wife and I were creating it and putting it all together, like we knew we had to create this with what our vision looked like at the time, and then we could back off.
Yeah.
We had to show Spokane this is what we can do at the first year. And then the plan was, before we didn't get the ticket sales and everything, we got unlucky. That was when it was the smokiest year to date at that point. It was that entire week leading up to it. You had every news organization saying, stay inside, stay inside, stay inside. And so it was just like, we were just under the projections I needed to, like the lowest projections I needed to keep going into the next year.
Wow.
And then there's a couple other things that happened afterwards, or another thing that happened afterwards.
But you know what? You're more ready now.
And it was a great learning experience, exercise. Probably the biggest party Spokane's ever seen, and it's the biggest party I ever put on.
So far.
Yeah. I've got a John Butler t-shirt that came from the festival.
Right on.
That the merch guy gave to us, and I have it. I wear it all the time for like, and I was actually wearing it I wear it specifically on certain things too, and I was wearing it for the Paul announcement. Because it's like,
your
for me,
shirt.
It's a representation of things, right? And And it's for me, that is it was and like with this festival, the potential of this festival, it's coming full circle, and it's like I believed in it then, I still believe in it now.
Right.
I wasn't early on it. I was getting in at the right time because the city's still building.
Right.
The city's becoming younger too.
Right. It is,
and I knew the projections of everything of what was expected.
Yeah. All those cool Gonzaga kids that are getting into that school and it's really hard to get into are staying here.
Yeah. And so it's like,
and Whitworth kids and Cougars.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't want to leave now. It's great. That's so good for this place.
And so it's like now to be able to come full circle and already have those conversations started with Live Nation, with Oakview Group.
You have the relationships.
Yeah. Justin Koblick, who is the president of West Coast Entertainment, the Broadway tenant, and he's the one that was putting together the Monsters of Rock, already having those conversations with him. Like, there's a lot of synergy going on right now to where eventually it's just all of us needing to get into one room and be like, okay, how are we hammering this out, and who's going to be in charge of what?
Well, it's going to be exciting. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, and it's weird when like that when people thank me for it, because it's not anything to be thankful for. My opinion, it's not anything.
I know
to be
you're doing
for.
your job.
It's something I love, so
right.
It's like,
well, then that's the point.
And it becomes it becomes easy at that point, right?
Because you're doing your passion.
Yeah.
And you're envisioning this anyway. And
Yeah.
and for you, it's the greatest reward. Me too.
Yeah.
I love doing this. You
Yep.
know, it's the funnest thing in the world for me and the easiest thing in the world for me.
Yeah.
But it matters.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, it does.
and I hope at least you acknowledge yourself
Yeah.
for, the kid from U High that's made this town better. Because
Yeah,
it's true, man.
it's
We're lucky to have you, and thanks for not leaving.
Yeah, and it's and I always look back to like the teams that I have, right? Because it's not just me; it's everybody.
I know that.
I'm lucky to have like the visions that I have. Like, if I didn't have the support from staff, this wouldn't be happening.
Right.
Like the podium, the idea of the podium would have been just squashed when that.
Right.
When the study came
She
through,
kept believing.
And she's like, "What do you?" When she saw it, she's like, "Well, what's your thoughts on this?" And I knocked down all these walls immediately.
Right.
I go, "There's other answers that we can figure out." And she's like, "Okay, well, let's just see what you find out."
And
Not like we're going to build anything.
And it's a huge success already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing. I was down in LA for Polestar conference, one of our largest industry conferences, and I was explaining this to a couple of our the promoters that we have and like the relationships I've built, and they go, "Well, when's it going to be built?" And I was like, "Well, I'm shooting for this date, but it might be later." Like, this is, and one of them was the Christian demo. Like, I never even thought about putting Christian in this thing, right?
It would be great.
It was an afterthought, and it's like
huge in this.
They were already like, "This is the perfect size. This is what we need." A lot of these shows, we'd rather put them there than maybe some of them don't really fit in the theater, and we can build them out over here. I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense."
Yeah.
Like, this is more than I thought it was going to be, and then all of a sudden, from like the EDM side, like we've got some promoter out of Las Vegas that just randomly calls out of the blue, "Hey, this is what we're looking to do. What type of rent is the arena?" I'm like, "Well, this is what it is, but hey, this is a more affordable option
and probably a better fit."
Yeah.
Wow. In lots of ways.
And they loved it. And like now, not only having Live Nation part of it and AEG, because AEG does a lot with WAMU Theater, and they know about it. And it's like not just having them, but like having this group from Vegas doing some theme shows. It's like, okay, this is right there is even more than I thought it was going to be. Like I was making my projections off of just what Live Nation was going to bring me.
Right.
And now
you have another card to play.
Yeah.
Wow.
Multiple.
Wow.
So it's been crazy to kind of see how this is all coming together, and as Steph and I were talking through a lot of this last spring, what was funny is like right when we started talking about it, like all these articles started popping up in like Billboard and Celebrity Access and Polestar and stuff like this about all these venues being built and like the capacities. And so I'm just shooting them off to her. It's like we're right in the middle of this one. We're hitting this one. We're right on this one.
And because they all help each other.
Yeah, and she's like that, like you are 100% behind this, and like like this is making more and more sense, and so it's been really neat to watch that come to fruition.
Well, it's cool to have your intuition about it and have it be right.
Yeah. Hopefully, I mean we haven't.
No. Hopefully you're right.
It's never right until it happens.
Yeah. Just ask Paul McCartney. I don't think he still said yes. Who knows? No. Well, thanks.
No, he better
be here. He's coming.
He better be.
Well, thanks for the Paul McCartney tickets.
Absolutely.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
And thanks for wearing green.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is.
I had to search for it. It's my Sasquatch skiing.
It's so great, and I'm glad you liked the whiskey.
Yeah, it was great.
All right.
It's really good.
Okay, and come back next time because I want an update.
Yep, we'll
Deal?
do.
All right,
yeah,
thanks.
easily.
Appreciate it.
MIP Podcast was filmed at the studio of Corner Booth Media. Please sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere podcasts can be found.